A little girl accuses to Millionaire. She's pretending to be pregnant. He demands proof. Before we start, hit subscribe if you believe understanding others can change everything. Enjoy the story. Sometimes the most dangerous lies come wrapped in the softest voices and the gentlest smiles. Sometimes the person trying to save you is the one everyone thinks is too young to understand. This is the story of Cole Harrington, a successful businessman who built an empire of family clinics across 3 states, yet nearly lost his own family to a lie so carefully crafted, so meticulously planned, that it almost fooled everyone who mattered. Almost. In a world where medical fraud has become increasingly sophisticated, where technology makes deception easier than ever before, this story serves as a reminder that sometimes the oldest forms of protection, a child's intuition, a loyal friend's observation, the simple act of asking uncomfortable questions, remain our strongest defenses against those who would manipulate our hearts for their own gain. It was a crisp October evening when Cole Harrington stood in his expansive living room watching his 8-year-old daughter Chloe arrange chess pieces on the board by the fireplace. The warm glow cast shadows that danced across medical textbooks scattered around her, an unusual sight for most children her age. But Chloe had always been different. Ever since her mother left when she was 2, abandoning them both without explanation or apology, Chloe had spent countless hours in her father's clinics, absorbing medical knowledge like a tiny sponge, finding comfort in the precision and logic of medicine that the adult world of emotions often lacked. The Harrington mansion, with its marble floors and soaring ceilings, could have felt cold and empty after years of single parenthood. Instead, Cole had filled it with warmth, family photos, Chloe's artwork displayed prominently on the walls, and shelves lined with both his medical journals and her ever-growing collection of children's science books. This house had become their sanctuary, a place where a father and daughter had learned to build a life around trust, honesty, and mutual respect. It was also the place where that carefully constructed peace was about to be tested in ways neither of them could have imagined. "Daddy, did you know that pregnant women aren't supposed to eat raw fish?" Chloe asked suddenly, not looking up from the chessboard. Her blonde hair fell in soft waves around her face as she concentrated on positioning the Black Queen. Cole paused, his coffee mug halfway to his lips. "That's right, sweetheart. Why do you ask?" Before Chloe could answer, the sound of heels clicking on marble echoed through the hallway. Sophia entered the room like a gentle breeze, her hand resting protectively over her supposedly growing belly. At 36, she possessed an ethereal beauty that had captivated Cole from their first meeting 6 months ago at a medical conference in Chicago. She had approached him during a break between sessions, asking thoughtful questions about his clinic's approach to family-centered care. Her genuine interest in his work, combined with her apparent vulnerability as a woman rebuilding her life after a difficult divorce, had drawn him in completely. Sophia's pregnancy announcement 3 weeks prior had filled him with a joy he hadn't felt in years. The thought of giving Chloe a sibling, of building the complete family he'd always envisioned, had made him overlook small inconsistencies that his trained medical mind might otherwise have questioned. Love, he was learning, could be both a gift and a blindfold. "My 2 favorite people," Sophia said, her voice carrying that musical quality that had first enchanted Cole. "Chloe, darling, shouldn't you be getting ready for bed?" Chloe's green eyes, so much like her father's, flickered with something Cole couldn't quite identify. It wasn't defiance exactly. It was something deeper, something that made his chest tighten with an inexplicable unease. "I was just asking Daddy about pregnancy," Chloe said carefully, her small fingers still gripping the chess piece. "About what pregnant women can and can't eat." Sophia's laugh tinkled like wind chimes. "Oh, sweetheart, every pregnancy is different. Some women have different tolerances." She moved to Cole's side, leaning into him with practiced affection. "Dr. Ben says I'm handling everything beautifully. No restrictions necessary." Cole felt Chloe's gaze boring into him, but when he looked down, she had already returned her attention to the chessboard. Something in her silence spoke louder than words, but he couldn't decipher what she was trying to tell him. This was the moment, though none of them knew it yet, when everything began to unravel. Because in this house of supposed happiness, a little girl who had learned to read people the way others read books was about to become the detective her family desperately needed. The firelight flickered across Chloe's face as she continued, studying the chessboard. But her mind was already working on a far more complex puzzle. She had noticed things that the adults around her had missed or dismissed. The way Sophia's pregnancy symptoms seemed to conveniently disappear when she thought no one was watching. The subtle inconsistencies in her medical stories, the fact that her supposed morning sickness never seemed to occur at predictable times. In the adult world, these observations might be dismissed as a child's overactive imagination or jealousy about sharing her father's attention. But Chloe had been trained, by circumstances and necessity, to be observant in ways that most children never needed to be. Her mother's betrayal had taught her that people could say one thing while meaning another, and her countless hours in medical clinics had given her an unusual understanding of how the human body actually works during pregnancy. These two forms of education, one painful, one scientific, were about to converge in ways that would save her father from making the biggest mistake of his life. The human heart has an incredible capacity for self-deception, especially when it desperately wants to believe in second chances and new beginnings. Cole Harrington was no exception. 3 days later, Cole's medical empire was preparing for its annual charity gala, a celebration that would also serve as the perfect backdrop for announcing the baby's gender. The ballroom of the Grand Metropolitan Hotel buzzed with excitement as Cole's colleagues, friends, and business partners gathered for what everyone believed would be a joyous revelation. Chloe stood beside her father, dressed in a navy blue dress that made her look older than her 8 years. She watched the crowd with the intensity of a scientist observing an experiment. Her small hand gripped Cole's larger one, and he could feel the slight tremor in her fingers. "Daddy," she whispered, tugging at his sleeve. "Can we talk?" Before the announcement, Cole glanced down at his daughter, noting the unusual seriousness in her expression. "What is it, sweetheart? Are you nervous about having a baby brother or sister?" Chloe shook her head quickly. "No, Daddy, it's not that, it's—" "There you are." Sophia appeared beside them, radiant in a flowing pink dress that perfectly highlighted her supposed pregnancy glow. "Everyone's waiting for the big reveal. Are you ready to find out if you're having a little brother or sister, Chloe?" The 8-year-old's face went pale. She looked up at her father with eyes that seemed to carry the weight of the world. "Daddy, please, I need to tell you something important. About the baby." Cole felt a strange chill run down his spine. There was something in Chloe's tone, a desperation he'd never heard before. "What about the baby, honey?" Chloe glanced around, the crowded ballroom, then back at Sophia, who was smiling that perfect, serene smile. "She's not having a baby, Daddy," Chloe whispered, her voice barely audible over the party chatter. "I saw the ultrasound paper from last year in her laptop, the same one she showed you last week." The words hit Cole like a physical blow. He stared down at his daughter, searching her face for any sign of childish misunderstanding or jealousy-driven fiction. But Chloe's green eyes held a clarity that made his stomach drop. "Chloe," Sophia said, her voice still gentle but with an edge Cole had never heard before. "Sweetheart, you must have seen something else. Sometimes documents look similar." "I know what I saw," Chloe interrupted, her young voice carrying a conviction that silenced the adults around her. The date was wrong, everything was wrong. Cole felt the world tilting around him. The celebration, the guests, the future he'd been planning. Everything suddenly felt unstable. "Chloe, that's a very serious accusation. Are you absolutely certain?" Before his daughter could answer, Dr. Ben appeared at Sophia's side, his professional smile firmly in place. "Is everything all right here? We're ready for the gender reveal when you are." Chloe looked at the doctor, then at Sophia, then back at her father. In that moment, Cole saw something in his daughter's expression that reminded him of himself. The careful observation, the analytical mind that had made him successful in business. But this wasn't business. This was his life, his heart, his future. "I'm certain, Daddy," Chloe said quietly. And I can prove it. Truth has a way of planting itself in the most inconvenient soil, growing roots that become impossible to ignore. For Cole Harrington, those roots began to spread the moment his daughter spoke her quiet accusation. The gender reveal party continued around them, but Cole felt as though he was watching it through thick glass, every sound muffled, every interaction taking on a surreal quality that made him question everything he thought he understood about his own life. Sophia moved through the crowd with practiced grace, accepting congratulations and gentle touches to her belly with the kind of serene confidence that had first attracted him to her. She seemed to glow with maternal joy, fielding questions about nursery preparations and baby names with the enthusiasm of a woman genuinely anticipating motherhood. Dr. Ben stayed close to her side, ready with medical reassurances whenever anyone asked about the pregnancy's progress. Cole had always appreciated the doctor's attentiveness to Sophia's care, viewing it as a sign of professional dedication. Now, watching their interactions with new eyes, he began to notice subtle communications between them. Quick glances, almost imperceptible nods, the way Dr. Ben seemed to anticipate Sophia's needs before she expressed them. What he had once interpreted as excellent patient care was beginning to look like something else entirely, the choreographed performance of two people working from the same script. The ballroom buzzed with anticipation as guests waited for the gender reveal that would never come. Cole's business colleagues, many of whom had become close friends over the years of building his medical empire, chatted excitedly about the future Harrington-heir. Several had already begun discussing potential business partnerships that could benefit the next generation, planning legacy investments and educational trust funds. The weight of their expectations, their genuine excitement for his happiness, made the possibility of deception feel even more devastating. But Cole's attention kept drifting back to Chloe, who had positioned herself near the dessert table where she could observe without being noticed. She wasn't eating or socializing, she was watching, and the intensity of her focus made Cole's chest tighten with unease. "Mr. Harrington?" A familiar voice drew Cole's attention. Adam, his longtime driver and former private detective, appeared, at his elbow with 2 glasses of champagne. "You look like you could use this." Adam had been with the Harrington family for 5 years, ever since Cole had hired him following his retirement from the police force. The older man had a gentle way with Chloe, teaching her chess and sharing stories from his investigative days. But right now, his weathered face carried an expression Cole had learned to recognize: professional concern. "Adam, did you hear what Chloe said earlier?" Cole asked quietly, accepting the champagne but not drinking it. The older man nodded slowly. "I did. And I've been watching that young lady all evening. She's not acting like a jealous child, Mr. Harrington. She's acting like someone who's discovered something troubling. But how could she possibly know?" "Children see things differently than adults," Adam interrupted gently. "They notice details we miss because we're too busy trying to see what we want to see." Across the room, Sophia was showing off ultrasound images to a group of admiring women. Cole had seen those images dozens of times, felt his heart swell with pride and anticipation each time Sophia pulled them from her purse. But now, watching from a distance, something nagged at him. "The timing," he murmured to himself. "What's that?" Adam asked. "Sophia said she first suspected she was pregnant about 4 months ago, but she didn't tell me until 3 weeks ago. She said she wanted to be sure." Cole's business mind began working, analyzing timelines and details the way he approached complex medical acquisitions. "But 4 months ago, we'd only been dating for 2 months. Adam's expression remained carefully neutral. That would make the conception timeline rather ambitious. Before Cole could respond, Chloe appeared beside them, her small face grave. "Daddy, I need to show you something. Can we go somewhere quiet?" Cole looked around the party, his colleagues, expecting an announcement, Sophia glowing in the spotlight, Dr. Ben ready with his professional validation. Everything was perfect. Too perfect. "All right, sweetheart. Show me." Chloe led them to a quiet corner of the hotel lobby, where she pulled out a small notebook, one of many she carried to record her medical observations. I wrote down everything I saw on her laptop, the date on the ultrasound, the doctor's name, even the patient number. She opened the notebook to a page filled with her careful handwriting. The date was October 15th last year. Not this year. Last year, Daddy. And the patient name was someone called Sarah Mitchell, not Sophia. Cole felt the ground shifting beneath him. Chloe, how do you remember all these details? Because you taught me to pay attention to medical documents, she said simply. You always said that in medicine details can mean the difference between life and death. I thought you'd want to know. Adam leaned down to examine the notebook, his detective instincts clearly engaged. This is very thorough, young lady. Very thorough indeed. What do I do? Cole asked, the question slipping out before he could stop it. He was asking his 8-year-old daughter and his driver for advice about the most important relationship in his adult life. But somehow in this moment they felt like the only people he could trust. We find the truth, Chloe said simply. That's what you always do at the clinics, right? When something doesn't make sense, you run more tests. Sometimes, the hardest investigations are the ones closest to home. When love and logic collide, the human heart often chooses the path of least resistance. But Cole Harrington had built his medical empire on the foundation of evidence-based decisions, and that training was beginning to overpower his emotional attachment. The morning after the party, Cole sat in his office overlooking the city, staring at a file that had never felt heavier. Lucy Morrison, his head nurse and confidant of 15 years, had arrived early with a troubled expression and a manila folder that would change everything. Lucy, you said you found something about Sophia's patient records? Cole asked, gesturing for her to sit in the chair across from his massive mahogany desk. Lucy, at 60, had the kind of professional demeanor that had earned respect throughout Cole's medical network. Her silver hair was pulled back in its usual neat bun, but her hands trembled slightly as she opened the folder. In her 15 years working alongside Cole, she had witnessed the growth of his empire from a single clinic to a network of family medical centers that served thousands of patients across 3 states. She had also watched him struggle through his divorce, rebuild his life as a single father, and slowly open his heart to the possibility of love again. What she was about to reveal would challenge everything he thought he knew about the woman he planned to marry. I've been thinking about what Chloe said last night, Lucy began carefully, her voice carrying the weight of someone who had spent decades navigating delicate medical situations. About the dates and the ultrasound images, it bothered me because that child has never been wrong about medical details. Not once. She has an uncanny ability to spot inconsistencies that even trained professionals might miss. She pulled out a series of documents, each one more damning than the last. I ran Sophia's patient identification number through our system, the one Dr. Ben provided when he sent over her prenatal records. What I found, Cole, this goes deeper than we initially thought. Cole leaned forward, his business instincts fully engaged now. And the number exists, but it was originally assigned to a different patient, a Sarah Mitchell who had a routine ultrasound last October. The records were modified, approximately 6 weeks ago. The words hit Cole like a diagnosis of terminal illness. Modified how? The patient name was changed from Sarah Mitchell to Sophia Bennett. The contact information was updated. Even the physical description was altered. Lucy's voice grew stronger as her professional indignation took over. But they left the original date stamp, October 15th of last year. Cole felt his chest tightening. So Chloe was right. The ultrasound image Sophia showed me, it's from someone else's pregnancy. It appears so. But Mr. Harrington, there's more. Lucy pulled out another document. I also found records of recent purchases made by Dr. Ben, medical supplies that aren't typically needed for standard prenatal care, including pregnancy test strips and HCG hormone supplements. The room fell silent except for the ticking of Cole's antique clock, a gift from his late father when Cole had opened his first clinic. Inscribed with the words, "Time reveals all truths." The irony of that inscription wasn't lost on him now. as the implications of Lucy's discovery settled over him like a suffocating blanket. His father had been a man of unwavering integrity, someone who had taught Cole that success in medicine required not just knowledge and skill, but absolute honesty. In all professional dealings, how would he have handled a situation where personal feelings conflicted so dramatically with professional ethics? Cole's fingers traced the edge of the manila folder as if it contained evidence of a terminal diagnosis rather than romantic betrayal. In many ways, it felt the same. The slow, sinking realization that everything he had planned for the future was built on a foundation that was crumbling beneath his feet. The dreams of expanding his family, of watching Chloe become a big sister, of building a legacy that would span generations, all of it had been constructed around a lie so elaborate that it had required the coordination of medical professionals and the falsification of official documents. "Lucy, what you're suggesting," he began, but the words caught in his throat as the full scope of the deception became clear. This wasn't just a case of someone telling a few white lies to win his affection. This was a sophisticated fraud that had involved multiple people and had been planned months in advance. The precision of it, the way every detail had been crafted to appeal to his specific vulnerabilities as a single father, longing for a complete family, suggested a level of manipulation that was both breathtaking and terrifying. "I'm not suggesting anything," Lucy said firmly. "I'm simply presenting you with facts. What you do with those facts is your decision." Cole's phone buzzed with a text from Sophia. "Darling, Dr. Ben wants to schedule another ultrasound this week. So exciting to see how much our little one has grown." Our little one. The words that had once filled him with joy now felt like needles in his chest. "There's one more thing," Lucy said quietly. "Yesterday evening after the party, I saw Dr. Ben and Sophia talking in the parking garage. I was leaving late and happened to walk past. Sophia was more upset. She kept saying something about keeping the timeline straight, and Dr. Ben was telling her to stick to the plan." Cole stared out his office window at the city below, a city where he'd built a reputation on trust, integrity, and the careful verification of medical facts. In his business, lives depended on getting the details right. How had he allowed his personal life to become so clouded by emotion that he'd ignored his own principles? "Lucy, I need you to do something for me," Cole said finally. "I want you to research Dr. Ben's credentials. Everything. His medical license, his practice history, his association with other patients named Sarah Mitchell." "Already started," Lucy replied with a small smile. "I'll have a full report by this afternoon." As Lucy left his office, Cole pulled out his phone and scrolled to Adam's number. If Chloe was right, if this woman he'd fallen in love with was orchestrating an elaborate deception, then he needed someone with investigative experience to help him navigate what came next. But first, he needed to have a conversation with his daughter, because 8-year-old Chloe Harrington might be the most important witness in his own life. There's something particularly devastating about discovering that the people we trust most have been living double lives. But there's also something profoundly healing about finding unexpected allies in the most unlikely places. That evening, Cole found Chloe in her favorite spot, curled up in the window seat of the library, surrounded by medical textbooks that most adults would find incomprehensible. She was reading Gray's Anatomy for Students, taking notes in her careful handwriting. "Studying hard?" Cole asked, settling beside her on the wide window seat. "I'm reading about pregnancy hormones," Chloe said without looking up. "Did you know that HCG levels follow very specific patterns? They double every 2 to 3 days in early pregnancy, then plateau around 10 to 12 weeks. Cole felt his heart skip. "What made you interested in that particular topic?" Chloe finally looked up, her green eyes holding a wisdom that seemed far beyond her years. "I wanted to understand how someone could fake being pregnant, and whether there was a way to prove it." The directness of her statement took Cole's breath away. "Chloe, why are you so certain that Sophia is lying?" His daughter closed the textbook and turned to face him fully. "Daddy, do you remember when Mommy left?" The change of topic surprised him. "Of course I do. You were very young, but I remember more than you think, Chloe interrupted quietly. I remember the phone call she thought I couldn't hear. The lies she told you about where she was going and who she was with. I remember how she would act different when other people were around. Sweeter, more loving. But when it was just us, she was cold. Cole felt his chest tighten. He'd tried so hard to shield Chloe from the uglier aspects of his marriage's dissolution, but apparently children absorbed more than adults realized. Sophia acts the same way, Chloe continued. When you're watching, she's perfect. But I've seen her when she thinks no one is looking. She doesn't touch her belly the way real pregnant women do. She doesn't have the eating habits or the fatigue patterns, and she's been taking pills. Pills? Small white ones. She keeps them in a little bottle in her purse. I saw her take 2 this morning with orange juice. Chloe pulled out her notebook. Again. I looked them up online. They're HCG supplements, the kind that can make pregnancy tests show positive results. Cole stared at his daughter, marveling at her methodical approach to something so emotionally complex. Chloe, how do you know about HCG supplements? Because I read everything, Daddy. And because Adam taught me that when something doesn't feel right, you should investigate instead of just feeling bad about it. As if summoned by his name, Adam appeared in the library doorway. Sorry to interrupt, but I have those results you asked for, Mr. Harrington. Cole gestured for Adam to join them on the window seat. The 3 of them sat there, a successful businessman, a retired detective, and an 8-year-old girl, forming the most unlikely investigative team imaginable. Dr. Ben's credentials are legitimate, Adam began, but his practice history is interesting. He's worked with 3 other women in the past 2 years who all had suspicious pregnancy claims that later resulted in miscarriages after marriage or significant financial commitments from wealthy partners. Chloe nodded as if this information confirmed her suspicions. So he's done this before. It appears so. And there's more. I contacted Sarah Mitchell, the original patient whose ultrasound images were used. She's a dental hygienist from Portland who had a completely normal pregnancy last year. She had no idea her medical records had been accessed or modified. Cole felt sick. So everything, the ultrasound, the pregnancy tests, even Dr. Ben's involvement, it's all been orchestrated. It looks that way, Adam confirmed. But we need more concrete evidence before you confront them. Right now, it's still possible they could explain away the inconsistencies. What kind of evidence? Cole asked. Chloe straightened up, her expression brightening with an idea. What if we could catch them actually faking something? Like creating another false ultrasound or switching pregnancy test results? Adam smiled at the young girl's tactical thinking. That's exactly what I was going to suggest. We need to create a situation where they have to produce new evidence, and we need to be prepared to document how they do it. Cole looked at his daughter. This remarkable little person who had potentially saved him from a lifetime of deception, and felt a mix of pride and profound sadness. Pride that she was so intelligent and observant. Sadness that she'd had to learn such difficult lessons about human nature at such a young age. All right, Cole said finally. What do you both think we should do? The art of exposing deception requires patience, precision, and the ability to play a role that goes against every instinct for honesty. Cole Harrington was about to learn just how difficult it could be to deceive a deceiver. 2 days later, Cole sat across from Sophia at their favorite restaurant, forcing his expression to remain loving and excited while his heart hammered with the knowledge of her likely betrayal. She looked radiant in a flowing blue dress, her hand resting protectively over her belly, in a gesture he now recognized as performance art. Darling, you seem tense, Sophia said, reaching across the table to touch his hand. Is everything all right at the clinic? Actually, I have wonderful news, Cole said, injecting enthusiasm into his voice that he didn't feel. I've been thinking about our future, about making sure our child has every advantage possible. Sophia's eyes lit up with what appeared to be genuine excitement. Oh? What did you have in mind? I want to register for a comprehensive prenatal care package at Metropolitan Women's Hospital. The absolute best care money can buy. Cole watched her face carefully. They'd want to do their own complete examination, of course. Full medical history, independent ultrasounds, blood work, the works. For just a moment, so brief he almost missed it. Sophia's perfect smile faltered. "Oh, sweetheart, that's incredibly generous, but I'm perfectly happy with Dr. Ben's care. He knows my medical history so well and—" "I insist," Cole said firmly. "Nothing but the best for our family. I've already spoken to Dr. Sarah Chen, their head of obstetrics. She's the most respected prenatal specialist in the state." Sophia's hand tightened on her water glass. "Cole, I appreciate the gesture, but changing doctors this far into pregnancy can be disruptive. Dr. Ben says, Dr. Ben will understand. In fact, I'd like him to transfer all your records to Dr. Chen this week. Complete medical transparency between providers." The color drained from Sophia's face so gradually that someone not watching for it might have missed the change entirely. Of course, if that's what you really want. But Dr. Chen will need to work around my schedule. I have some travel commitments coming up." "Travel commitments?" Cole asked, though Adam had already informed him that Sophia had purchased a one-way ticket to Vancouver leaving in 5 days. "Nothing that can't be rescheduled for our baby's health, surely." "No, of course not. Sophia fumbled with her phone, typing rapidly. "Let me check my calendar." Cole watched her fingers flying across the screen and wondered if she was texting Dr. Ben about this unexpected development. "Actually, there's more good news. I've decided to accelerate our wedding plans. Why wait? I want to marry you before our child is born." This time, Sophia's reaction was unmistakable. Her phone slipped from her hands, clattering onto the table. "Marry? So soon? Why not? We love each other. We're having a child together. I see no reason to delay." Cole leaned forward, taking both her hands in his. "Unless there's something you're not telling me?" No, of course not. I'm just surprised. It's very sudden. The best decisions usually are." Cole raised his wine glass. "To our future, to our family, and to the truth that binds us together." Sophia lifted her own glass with a trembling hand. "To the truth," she echoed, though the words seemed to stick in her throat. As they clinked glasses, Cole caught sight of Chloe at a corner table across the restaurant with Adam, who had brought her for an ice cream dinner while keeping surveillance on the meeting. His daughter gave him a small thumbs up. Apparently his performance was convincing enough. "There is one small thing," Cole said casually. "Dr. Chen mentioned that she'd like to review your complete ultrasound history, something about tracking fetal development patterns from the beginning. She specifically requested the original imaging files from Dr. Ben's equipment." "Original files?" "Yes, the digital source files. Apparently they contain metadata that helps with accurate measurements. Very technical stuff." Cole was improvising now, using just enough medical terminology to sound credible. "She said most patients don't realize that ultrasound images can be manipulated, if not handled properly." Sophia's face had gone completely pale now. "I should call Dr. Ben. Make sure he has everything ready for transfer." "Excellent idea. Why don't you call him now? We can clear up any questions immediately." Cole watched as Sophia's carefully constructed world began to crumble around her. The woman who had seemed so confident, so in control, was now fumbling with her phone with shaking hands. "He's not answering," she said after a moment. "Probably with a patient." "Of course. Well, no rush. Dr. Chen's appointment is tomorrow at 2 o'clock. Plenty of time for Dr. Ben to prepare everything." Sophia's wine glass slipped from her fingers, splashing red wine across the white tablecloth like a crime scene. "Tomorrow? So, soon? Is there a problem with tomorrow?" Cole asked innocently. "I assumed you'd be as excited as I am to see our baby again." For a long moment, Sophia stared at the wine spreading across the table, and Cole saw something in her expression he'd never noticed before. The look of someone whose elaborate lie was collapsing around them, leaving them trapped with nowhere to run. Desperation has a unique sound. It's the quiet rustle of someone frantically shuffling through options that no longer exist. Cole could hear it in every word Sophia spoke, as their dinner concluded with forced pleasantries and barely concealed panic. That night, Cole sat in his home office with Adam and Chloe, reviewing the surveillance footage from the restaurant. Chloe had insisted on staying up past her bedtime to help analyze Sophia's behavior, and Cole had agreed. After all, she'd been the one to crack the case wide open. "Look at her hands," Chloe pointed to the laptop screen. "Every time you mentioned Dr. Chen or the hospital, her fingers started tapping. It's a stress response. I learned about it in my psychology textbook." Adam nodded approvingly. "Good observation. And notice how she kept touching her phone but never actually made a call to Dr. Ben. That suggests she was texting someone, probably warning them about the new developments." "But here's what I don't understand," Cole said, pausing the video. "If this is all fake, why not just claim a miscarriage and walk away? Why continue the charade when it's becoming so complicated?" "Because she's in too deep," Adam replied. "Think about it from her perspective. She's already announced the pregnancy publicly, accepted congratulations, made plans. Walking away now without a compelling reason would raise suspicions. She's committed to seeing this through." Chloe, who had been unusually quiet, suddenly straightened up. "Or maybe she's waiting for something specific." Both adults turned to look at her. "What do you mean, sweetheart?" "Well, if someone was pretending to be pregnant to marry a rich person, they'd want to make sure they were legally protected before the lie was exposed. Maybe she's trying to get to the wedding first." Cole felt his blood run cold. "You think she's planning to marry me and then claim she lost the baby?" "It would make sense," Adam said grimly. "Establish legal claim to your assets through marriage, then stage a miscarriage caused by stress or complications. She'd get sympathy, financial support, and legal standing all at once." The phone rang, interrupting their analysis. Cole glanced at the caller ID, Sophia. "Put it on speaker," Adam suggested. "Let's hear what she has to say." "Hello, darling." Sophia's voice filled the office, and Cole noticed immediately that her usual musical tone sounded strained. "I'm so sorry to call so late." "No problem. Is everything all right?" "I spoke with Dr. Ben about tomorrow's appointment with Dr. Chen. He's concerned about the stress of changing care providers so late in pregnancy. He thinks it might be better to wait until after delivery." Cole exchanged glances with Adam. "Concerned how?" "Well, he mentioned that some of his records might not transfer properly to new systems, technical compatibility issues, and he's worried that unfamiliar procedures might cause complications." "Complications?" Sophia's voice grew smaller, more vulnerable, a masterful performance. "Cole, I'm scared. Dr. Ben says that stress during pregnancy can cause problems. What if all this change hurts our baby?" Cole felt the familiar tug of protectiveness that Sophia had always been able to trigger. But now, with Chloe watching him intently and Adam's steady presence beside him, he could see the manipulation for what it was. "Sophia, our baby's health is the most important thing to me, but surely one additional examination can't hurt. Dr. Ben thinks it could. He's recommending that I go to a specialist clinic upstate for a few days, just for monitoring and rest. He has connections there, doctors he trusts." "Upstate?" Cole's grip tightened on the phone. "How far upstate?" "Just a few hours, near the Canadian border. Dr. Ben says the mountain air would be good for both me and the baby." Adam was already typing on his laptop, and he held up the screen to show Cole. "Flight confirmation. Sophia Bennett to Vancouver. Departure 3 days." "That sounds wonderful," Cole said carefully. "When would you leave?" "Possibly this weekend. Dr. Ben is making the arrangements now." Cole looked at Chloe, who was shaking her head vigorously. His 8-year-old daughter had become his most trusted advisor in exposing this elaborate deception. "Sophia, I have a better idea. What if I take some time off and come with you? I could use a break from the clinic, and I'd love to spend more quiet time with you before the baby arrives." The silence on the other end of the phone stretched so long that Cole wondered if the call had dropped. That's very sweet," Cole, but Dr. Ben specifically said that the treatment would be more effective if I could focus entirely on rest. No distractions, even wonderful ones like you. I see. Cole's voice remained carefully neutral. Well, I certainly want what's best for you and our child. Thank you for understanding. You're going to be such a wonderful father. After the call ended, the three conspirators sat in silence for a moment. She's running, Adam said finally. The appointment with Dr. Chen scared her enough that she's accelerating her exit plan. But we still don't have definitive proof, Cole pointed out. Everything we have is circumstantial. Chloe smiled, an expression that was both innocent and slightly mischievous. Not for long, I have an idea. In chess, the most decisive moves often appear to be mistakes until the very moment they reveal themselves as checkmate. Chloe Harrington understood this principle better than most adults twice her age. The next morning, Cole found himself in the unusual position of following his 8-year-old daughter's strategic advice. Chloe had proposed a plan so simple and direct that it bordered on genius. Force Sophia and Dr. Ben to produce evidence in real time under circumstances they couldn't control or prepare for. Remember, Adam said as they drove toward Dr. Ben's clinic, you're the concerned father-to-be who wants the absolute best care for his child. You're not suspicious. You're protective. And if Sophia tries to avoid the appointment? Cole asked. Then we'll know for certain that everything we suspect is true, Chloe replied from the back seat. She was dressed in her best outfit, playing the role of the excited soon-to-be big sister. But Daddy, you have to act surprised when the truth comes out. Don't let them know we already figured it out. They arrived at Dr. Ben's clinic to find Sophia already there, looking pale and anxious in the waiting room. She brightened when she saw Cole, but he noticed the way her smile didn't quite reach her eyes. Darling, I thought you were going to meet us here later. I couldn't wait, Cole said, settling beside her and taking her hand. I've been thinking about what Dr. Ben said about stress and complications. I want to make sure we're doing everything right. Dr. Ben emerged from his office, his professional demeanor firmly in place. At 39, he possessed the kind of confident manner that inspired trust in patients seeking medical care. But Adam's research had revealed that his confidence came from years of practice at deception. Mr. Harrington, so good to see you again, and Chloe. Dr. Ben's attention turned to the 8-year-old. Are you excited about becoming a big sister? Very excited, Chloe replied solemnly. I've been reading about fetal development. Did you know that by this stage of pregnancy the baby should be large enough to see distinct features on an ultrasound? Dr. Ben's smile flickered almost imperceptibly. That's very impressive knowledge for someone your age. I want to be a doctor like my daddy, Chloe continued innocently. He taught me that medical evidence has to be precise and verifiable. Cole felt Sophia's hand tense in his. Shall we get started? She asked quickly. I'd like to keep this appointment brief. Of course, Dr. Ben replied. Let's step into the examination room. As they settled into the familiar clinical setting, Cole pulled out his phone. I hope you don't mind, but I'd like to record this for our baby book. The first time we hear the heartbeat together as a complete family. Recording. Sophia's voice was barely a whisper. Is that a problem? Cole asked innocently. I know some medical practices prefer not to be recorded, but since this is such a special moment. Dr. Ben's professional mask slipped slightly. Well, for privacy reasons, we typically don't allow. Oh, but this is just for our personal collection, Cole insisted. And Chloe specifically asked if she could hear the baby's heartbeat, didn't you, sweetheart? Chloe nodded enthusiastically. I want to count the beats per minute. I know that fetal heart rates should be between 110 and 160 beats per minute at TO, this stage of development. Dr. Ben glanced at Sophia, who had gone completely pale. Perhaps we should start with a routine examination before moving to the ultrasound. Actually, Cole said, I have a small surprise. I contacted Dr. Sarah Chen from Metropolitan Women's Hospital this morning. She's agreed to provide a second opinion via video consultation during today's examination. Professional courtesy between colleagues. The blood drained from Dr. Ben's face. A second opinion? That's really not necessary. I insist, Cole said firmly. As Chloe pointed out, medical evidence needs to be precise and verifiable. Dr. Chen is standing by on video call. Sophia stood up abruptly. Cole, I'm feeling dizzy. Maybe we should reschedule. Nonsense, Cole replied, gently guiding her back to the examination table. Dr. Ben can check your blood pressure first. Make sure you and the baby are both doing well. Cole pulled out his phone and initiated the video call to Dr. Chen, who appeared on screen with a warm, professional smile. Good morning, everyone. Dr. Ben, it's a pleasure to meet you. Mr. Harrington has told me wonderful things about the care you've been providing. Dr. Ben looked like a man watching his career implode in real time. Dr. Chen, I'm afraid this is highly irregular. Not at all, Dr. Chen replied cheerfully. Collaborative care is becoming more common. Now shall we proceed with the ultrasound? I'm particularly interested in seeing the current fetal measurements compared to the earlier images Mr. Harrington shared with me. Sophia made a small, choking sound. Earlier images? The ultrasound from your first trimester, Cole explained innocently. I wanted Dr. Chen to have a complete picture of the baby's development. Dr. Ben's hands were visibly shaking as he prepared the ultrasound equipment. Perhaps we should discuss this privately before. There's no need for privacy, Cole said warmly. We're all here for the same reason, the health and safety of our child. Dr. Chen's voice from the phone was professionally curious. Dr. Ben, the first trimester images that Mr. Harrington shared show some interesting timestamps. Could you explain the discrepancy in the metadata? The room fell silent except for the hum of medical equipment. Sophia looked from Dr. Ben to Cole, to the phone screen, her carefully constructed facade crumbling like a house of cards. Dr. Ben started, then stopped. His professional confidence had completely evaporated. Chloe, who had been quietly observing everything, suddenly spoke up. Dr. Ben, why do the ultrasound pictures on your computer have a different patient name than Sophia's? I saw it when you opened the file. The 8-year-old's clear, innocent question hung in the air like an accusation that no adult manipulation could answer. Truth has weight. When it finally emerges after being buried under layers of deception, it doesn't whisper, it thunders. And in that small examination room, surrounded by medical equipment and the watchful eyes of witnesses both present and virtual, the truth about Sophia's pregnancy finally found its voice. Dr. Ben's composure shattered completely. His hands shook as he set down the ultrasound wand, and when he spoke, his voice carried the weight of someone whose carefully constructed world was collapsing around him. I can't do this anymore, he said quietly, addressing no one in particular. This has gone too far. Sophia's reaction was immediate and desperate. Ben, don't. No, Sophia. It's over. Dr. Ben turned to face Cole directly. Mr. Harrington, I owe you an explanation and an apology. Dr. Chen's voice from the phone carried professional authority. Dr. Ben, are you saying there are irregularities in this patient's care? There's no patient, Dr. Ben said simply. There's no pregnancy. There never was. The words hung in the air like a physical presence, heavy with the weight of months of deception finally brought to light. Cole felt them hit him in waves. First, shock as his rational mind processed what he was hearing. Then validation, as all the small doubts and inconsistencies suddenly made perfect sense. Then a crushing sadness for the future he'd been imagining. The dreams he'd built around what he now knew was an elaborate fiction. The examination room, with its sterile white walls and humming medical equipment, had become the stage for the collapse of everything he thought he knew about the woman he'd planned to marry. The ultrasound machine sat silent, no longer needed to perpetuate a lie that had finally crumbled under the weight of truth. Sophia stood up from the examination table, her hand still protectively over her belly in a gesture that now seemed almost tragic in its futility. The woman who had entered his life like an answer to his prayers was revealing herself to be something far more complicated, not evil, but broken in ways that had led her to build an entire relationship on deception. You don't understand, she said, her voice breaking. I needed this. I needed someone to stay with me, to care about me. Do you know what it's like to be alone all the time? So you created a fake pregnancy? Cole asked, his voice surprisingly gentle despite everything. "It wasn't supposed to go this far," Sophia replied, tears streaming down her face. "At first it was just, I wanted you to love me. I wanted to matter to someone. When I told you, I was pregnant and saw how happy you were, how protective and caring, I couldn't take it back." Chloe, who had been quietly observing the adult drama unfold, spoke up with a wisdom that belied her 8 years. "But love that's built on lies isn't real love. Real love doesn't need tricks." Sophia looked at the little girl, the one who had seen through her deception from the beginning, and something in her expression shifted. The desperation was still there, but it was joined by something else. Recognition. "You knew all along, didn't you?" Sophia asked Chloe. "That's why you were always watching me." "I knew something was wrong," Chloe replied simply. "My mommy used to lie too. I learned to notice the signs." Dr. Ben, meanwhile, was providing Dr. Chen with a full confession via the video call. The ultrasound images were from previous patients. The pregnancy tests were manipulated using HCG supplements. The entire medical record was fabricated. "Dr. Ben," Dr. Chen's voice was firm, "you understand that what you're describing constitutes medical fraud on multiple levels?" "I understand, and I'm prepared to face the consequences." Cole found himself in the surreal position of feeling sorry for the woman who had deceived him. Sophia wasn't evil. She was broken, desperate, and had made terrible choices in her quest for connection and security. "Sophia," he said quietly, "why didn't you just tell me you were struggling? Why not trust that I might care about you without all this?" "Because men don't stay," she replied, her voice barely a whisper, each word carrying the weight of years of abandonment and rejection. "They say they will, but they don't. My father left when I was 12. My first husband left when I got sick and couldn't have children. My second boyfriend left when I lost my job and couldn't contribute to expenses anymore. Every man I've ever loved has found a reason to walk away when things got difficult or when I stopped being useful to them." She looked around the sterile examination room, at the medical equipment that had been used to perpetuate her deception, at the faces of the people whose lives she had disrupted with her desperate need for security. "But if I was having your baby, I thought you'd have to stay. I thought that would make me essential, irreplaceable. I thought it would create a bond strong enough that you couldn't just disappear like all the others did." Cole felt a complex mixture of emotions wash over him: anger at the deception, pity for the pain that had driven it, and a deeper sadness for the fact that Sophia had never experienced the kind of unconditional love that might have taught her she was worthy of care without manipulation. He thought about his own relationship with Chloe, how their bond had only strengthened through difficulties, how love based on truth could weather any storm, while love based on lies was destined to collapse. "But I would have left anyway when I found out about the lie," he said gently, trying to help her understand the fundamental flaw in her strategy. "Don't you see? The deception guaranteed the very abandonment you were trying to prevent. Real love, the kind that lasts through difficulties, can only be built on a foundation of honesty. When you started with a lie, you made it impossible for us to build anything real." Chloe climbed down from her chair and, surprising everyone, walked over to Sophia. "My daddy stays with people he loves. He stayed with me even when my mommy left, but only when they tell the truth." The little girl's simple honesty broke through Sophia's defensive walls in a way that adult anger or accusations never could. Sophia knelt down to Chloe's level, tears flowing freely now. "I'm sorry I lied to your daddy," Sophia said. "And I'm sorry I tried to trick you into believing you were going to be a big sister." "I know," Chloe replied, with matter-of-fact compassion. "But now you can get help for the real problems instead of making up fake ones." Dr. Chen's voice from the phone brought them back to practical realities. "Mr. Harrington, I'm required to report this incident to the medical board and appropriate authorities. Dr. Ben, you'll need to surrender your license pending investigation." Cole looked around the room, at Sophia, broken and exposed, at Dr. Ben, facing the destruction of his career, at Chloe, who had somehow maintained her compassion even while uncovering such an elaborate deception. "Dr. Chen," Cole said finally, "while I certainly want appropriate action taken, I also think Sophia needs psychological support rather than just punishment. This isn't just fraud. It's a cry for help." Sophia looked up at him with surprise and gratitude. "You're not going to have me arrested?" "The authorities will make their own decisions about criminal charges," Cole replied honestly. "But I'm not interested in revenge, Sophia. I'm interested in making sure you get help so you don't hurt yourself or anyone else this way again." As they prepared to leave the clinic, their future dramatically different from what any of them had imagined when they'd arrived, Chloe slipped her hand into her father's. "Daddy," she said quietly, "are you sad that there's no baby?" Cole considered the question carefully. "I'm sad that the situation wasn't real, but I'm proud of you for being brave enough to tell the truth when it mattered. Even when it made people angry at me? Especially then. Sometimes the most important truths are the hardest ones to tell." 6 months later, Cole Harrington sat in his home office watching Chloe arrange chess pieces on the board by the window. The setting was familiar, but everything else had changed. The desperate urgency that had once filled their days had been replaced by something more valuable: authentic peace. "Your move, Daddy," Chloe said, having just executed a strategic attack on his king that would have impressed Adam, who had taught her the combination. "When did you get so good at chess?" Cole asked, studying the board with genuine admiration. "When I started paying attention to what people were really doing instead of what they said they were doing," Chloe replied matter-of-factly. "Adam says it's the same skill." Cole moved his king to safety, then looked up at his daughter. "Chloe, do you ever think about Sophia?" "Sometimes. Do you?" "Sometimes," Cole admitted. "I hope she's getting the help she needs." They had learned, through Dr. Chen, that Sophia had entered a residential treatment program for people struggling with deception and attachment disorders. Dr. Ben had lost his medical license, but was cooperating fully with authorities and working with a therapist to understand how he'd been drawn into such an elaborate fraud. "I got a letter from her last week," Cole said quietly. "She wanted to apologize again and to thank you for being kind to her even when she was lying." Chloe considered this information while planning her next chess move. "I think she was scared more than mean. Scared people sometimes do bad things when they think it's the only way to get what they need." The wisdom in his 8-year-old daughter's observation never ceased to amaze Cole. "That's very mature thinking, sweetheart. Adam says that understanding why people do bad things doesn't mean you have to let them hurt you, but it means you can forgive them without trusting them." "That's exactly right." A knock at the office door interrupted their game. Lucy appeared with a stack of papers and her usual efficient smile. "Sorry to interrupt your chess match, but I have some reports that need your signature." "Of course." Cole accepted the papers, noting that Lucy's expression carried something beyond professional courtesy. "What is it, Lucy?" "Well, I wasn't sure if I should mention this, but Dr. Sarah Chen called this afternoon. She wanted to thank you for how you handled the situation with Sophia and Dr. Ben. Apparently your approach, focusing on getting help rather than just punishment, has been held up as a model for other cases." Cole felt a warm glow of satisfaction. "That's nice to hear." She also mentioned that the medical board has implemented new protocols for verifying pregnancy claims in situations involving significant financial considerations. They're calling the Harrington Standard. Chloe looked up from the chessboard with interest. "They named something after Daddy?" "Actually," Lucy said with a smile, "they named it after both of you. The protocol specifically emphasizes the importance of paying attention to inconsistencies, no matter who points them out or how young they might be." Cole reached over and ruffled his daughter's hair. "Hear that? You're making medical history." "I just didn't want you to get hurt again," Chloe said simply. "I know. And because you cared enough to speak up, other people won't get hurt either." Lucy left them to their game, and they played in comfortable silence for a while. As the sun began to set outside the window, casting long shadows across the chessboard. Cole reflected on how much their lives had changed. The crisis with Sophia had taught him to trust his daughter's instincts and to value truth over comfort. But more than that, it had shown him that the family he already had, his brilliant, observant, compassionate daughter, was more precious than any imagined future he might have been chasing. "Daddy," Chloe said suddenly. "Checkmate." Cole looked at the board and laughed. She had indeed trapped his king with a series of moves he hadn't seen coming. "When did you plan that?" "About 6 moves ago, but I waited to make sure you saw it too." "Why did you wait?" Chloe smiled up at him with an expression that was pure innocence mixed with ancient wisdom. "Because winning isn't fun if the other person doesn't understand what happened. The best victories are the ones where everyone learns something." As Cole reset the chess pieces for another game, he realized that his 8-year-old daughter had just articulated the most important lesson from their recent experience. Truth wasn't about punishment or being right. It was about understanding, learning, and growing together. Outside the window, the city lights were beginning to twinkle in the gathering dusk. Somewhere out there, Sophia was working to rebuild her life on a foundation of honesty instead of deception. Dr. Ben was facing the consequences of his choices while learning to make better ones. And here, in this quiet room filled with the soft click of chess pieces and the companionable silence between a father and daughter, healing was happening one move at a time. "Your turn, Daddy," Chloe said, her green eyes bright with affection and challenge. "My turn," Cole agreed, and meant it in ways that went far beyond the chess game. Because sometimes the greatest victories aren't about defeating deception. They're about choosing truth, compassion, and the courage to protect the people we love, even when that protection requires difficult conversations and uncomfortable revelations. Sometimes a little girl's warning really can save you from a lifetime of tragedy. Sometimes the smallest voice carries the most important truth. And sometimes the family you already have is the greatest gift you could ever receive. What's the most important truth someone close to you has shared that changed your life? In the comments below, share your story about a time when paying attention to someone's concerns, especially when they seemed unlikely or inconvenient, made all the difference. Like this video if you believe that protecting our families sometimes means having hard conversations, and subscribe for more stories about the courage to choose truth over comfort. Because in the end, real love doesn't need fake evidence. It thrives on patience, transparency, and the willingness to listen to the people who care about us most.